Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show. And here on the Total Truth Show, we want to help you break free from the lies and propaganda of the mainstream media, all the disinformation and misinformation. We want to help you blast through all of that. And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from the USA, San Diego, California.
And I'm Aldwyn Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
There is a great awakening happening in the world right now, and you're going to want to come along for the ride.
A lot of lies are coming to the surface. There's a lot of awakening happening. And as this awakening is happening, people realize they've been deceived for years. They've been lied to for years around all sorts of things. A lot of people have been blind to what has been going on in the world, and now they're starting to see. They're starting to see things in a different light.
Through our show, we want to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass. And we don't want you just to accept the things that we're saying. That goes for our guests as well. We want you to do the research for yourself. Get out there and start questioning things. Start looking things up. Do the research. We want to pave the way for a new awakened world. And we want you to come along for the ride. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Welcome to Total Truth Show, episode 98, the truth about spiritual integration. Now, we have had some amazing conversations behind the scenes before we've gone live today. I know this is going to be a doozy of a show. So welcome wherever you're joining us from on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. We do welcome your comments as we go make this show interactive. We have my co-host, Mr. Ken Kleinberg, with us. Hey, Ken, how you going?
Doing well. How about you?
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. And our special guest today, we've got Cameron Quin in the house from Thailand. I'm going to do a little intro on Cameron. We actually met 14 years ago when we were both very different back then. And we were just talking about how much things have changed in 14 years. And one of the most extraordinary young gentlemen that I know. And a little bit about Cameron before we chat about this topic today. He is a living testament to transformation. And he's proof that no past is too dark to overcome. At 13, he spiraled into a world of sex, drugs, and alcohol, which led to multiple hospitalizations, a school suspension, and a violent altercation. He was sent to a boarding school in Cambridge, New Zealand, and his trajectory changed when his father sent him Think and Grow Rich, which has actually created more millionaires than any other book. And this was a bold move, and his father's extraordinary as well. Love Dad. Hello, Dad, if you're watching. And this planted the seed of self-belief. Now, that moment ignited an unrelenting pursuit of growth, leading him from being an atheist to a deep spiritual connection. He shed 15 kilos. He reshaped his mind and body. And he didn't just rebuild himself, he built and successfully exited 4 companies, surrounding himself with world-class mentors, gurus, and thought leaders across many industries. And today he works with an international team of doctors and scientists, blending cutting-edge research with ancient wisdom to help others break free from conditioning, reprogram their minds, and step into their highest potential. And through the Freedom Collective, which is an amazing program Cameron is running that I'm currently doing, and I love it. And we're at the foundation part of this course, which I know is going to be huge. He isn't just teaching transformation. He's leading a global movement of those ready to rewrite their own story. Welcome, Cameron.
Thank you, Aldwyn. Thank you, Ken. I'm very grateful, and it's an honor to be here.
It's fantastic to have you here, Cameron. And what a transformation. Now, that's something you and Ken have in common, because Ken has also shed many kilos and had massive transformation in that way. So what was it for you that sparked that losing all those kilos or shedding that weight at the time for you?
It's a great question. We're going to start off with a doozy then.
Excellent.
So it certainly encompasses, I guess, the spiritual awakening I went through. Yet there is a very specific thing which is quite interesting. I during studying the mental health company in Asia, we came across psychedelic mushrooms, and during one particular psychedelic mushroom trip, the my cells spoke to me. So I agreed to have them enter my mind consciously. And when I did that, I was downloaded information that took me from, showed me a single cell all the way up to basically the full form of 50 trillion individual cells in our body. But what it showed me more so was the pain and suffering in which the cells went through for the evolution to take place for me to be here. And then they turned around and looked at me and just said, "What are you doing to us, Cameron?" At that point in time, I was still drinking, I was eating junk food, I wasn't moving my body, I wasn't really moving my mind at the point in time. This is the start of the pandemic. And they literally just said, "What are you doing?" They showed me the power and I guess the responsibility that I have to be the leader or the president or prime minister of a colony of 50 trillion individual cells. And they showed me the pain and suffering that I'm causing them by poisoning them. Literally after that day, I stopped eating junk food. My alcohol intake went from 100% down to like, down 90%. Now I occasionally have a red wine, and back then I was a full-blown alcoholic. And just literally through a change in my why, it was really easy to just start changing all the habitual behaviors. I like to pose the question to individuals that I meet: what would your cells say to you if they could speak?
Mm.
Yes, I love that. And gosh, what a transformation. I remember you very clearly from those days, and we've always had great times together. However, really, it's been beautiful to see how you've evolved and grown. And I was noticing on some of your Facebook lives, I noticed you cut a lime open the other day from your garden. So could you share some of the food that you're growing there in Thailand?
So basically, since the COVID pandemic, seeing that really we are completely under attack from a perspective of being poisoned, food, water, air, and everything else, I could see that it was going to be very important for me to go back to nature. Now, not only was it seeing, but through my psychedelic experiences and my integration work, everything was saying, you go back to nature. Nature is key. I am nature. We are part of nature in this ecosystem. And so since receiving those messages, I was keen to be able to see what I could do, find a piece of land and have the ability to be sovereign and responsible for myself, basically. And so I'm very fortunate where I have that now. I've manifested that into my life. And now I'm growing banana trees and papaya trees and lime trees, cardamom, fresh mint, basil, and I can go on and on, avocado. I'm basically now planting. I've just planted over the last few months over 100 trees. I've set up irrigation systems, and literally I'm currently building my first house to just be able to do everything myself and to be able to be self-responsible.
That is so cool. I absolutely love it. And there is nothing like having fresh food from your garden. And we're actually growing passion fruit about this big in our garden at the moment in Southport. So we have an organic garden. We're actually looking to get chickens in now because the government's killing all the chickens off. And so now eggs have gone to $10 a dozen for free range eggs. And I never buy cage eggs, but even the cage eggs are like $7 a dozen now in Australia, which is just insane. And that's a whole interesting discussion in itself. The millions of chickens that the government.
So a tray of 30 here is 120 baht, which is about $4, FYI.
There we go. So this is why people live in Thailand, as well as the $6 massages, which are absolutely brilliant. And, it's worth going to Thailand just for the massages and for some cheap eggs. There you go. The cost of living definitely is brilliant in Thailand. And the people are lovely. It's a beautiful place to be. So I can see why you've been there for a year now, Cameron, and you've got this beautiful farm. Well done.
Well, very, very soon, what I'm doing here will be outlawed in Australia. They're already moving towards outlawing the chickens that you can have, the food that you can grow. And I just think that it's insanity.
Yeah, so do I. Absolutely. I just saw another ad about the bloody fire ants the other day saying, oh, how dangerous these fire ants are. And of course, anyone who's aware will know the government has been poisoning Australia, and they're using $1.2 billion of government resources to poison Australia with this fire ant eradication program that's actually poisoning organic farming. It's poisoning other animals, and it's making the fire ant problem worse because it's killing all ants. And one of the best ways to combat fire ants is other ants. Now, you can kill fire ants with hot water, for your information, guys. So do your own research. There's a great Facebook group called Stop Toxic Fire Ant Eradication Program. Get informed, get empowered with everything we're talking about. Total Truth Show is about questioning what you believe to be true. And particularly if something is being bombarded through the mainstream media, you definitely want to question that. And being a media person for 40 years, I've seen it behind the scenes. I've seen it happen. We've seen it all through social media. So interesting times that we're in. So I love what you're doing to get empowered there, Cameron, to get self-sustainable. I think it's definitely the way to go. And we've seen also in Europe, so many farms have been crucified, people wanting to do their own farms and have their own organic food. It's really under attack. And you've got to ask yourself, well, why is that? Like Monsanto. Okay, now Ken would know more about this with Monsanto, right? But, there's some great documentaries out there, like Food Inc. is a fantastic one to see if you haven't seen it, Food Inc. And it talks about how Monsanto patented a whole lot of seeds and how they crucified farmers. They basically took them to the wall because they were growing food, and they said, well, they had the seeds patented. So it's all genetically modified food that they're pushing out, which of course is going to kill people off quicker, and all of that. So Ken, maybe you could comment more about that.
So I haven't seen that Food Inc., but I am very, very aware of what they are doing to our food. As a matter of fact, part of that awareness is actually included in my mini educational boot camp, which I have running right now. And so here's the thing that a lot of people still don't know. It's actually still widely unknown, which is surprising to me. And I do run across clients that come through my boot camp that are just absolutely shocked at this. So here's a little bit of backdrop on what's really going on in the industry, the food industry. Back in the 1980s and the 1990s, the cigarette and tobacco companies were losing profit because the awareness was coming that cigarettes were addictive, they weren't good for your health, all that stuff, right? So their profits were dropping, and they needed to do something about it. And so Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds actually began turning their attention to the food sector, and then brought their top scientists and researchers, the same people that they've spent millions and billions of dollars with, to help produce cigarettes as addictive as they could possibly be. These same scientists and researchers were now assigned to the food sector. And it's interesting also, at around that time, the food pyramid, the mainstream food pyramid came out. And so before I get into that, the interesting thing about it is, they switched to the food, and they worked really, really hard to create foods with certain amount of ingredients in there, certain types of ingredients, and not good ingredients either, to literally bring you to the perfect bliss point. Not above, not below, the perfect bliss point. So in that, what eventually begins to happen as you eat their industry-created foods, you eventually begin to form new neural pathways, which then change your taste buds. It changes your cravings. And now all of a sudden you're hooked and addicted to their food, which I will admit, they've designed that food to taste phenomenal, but they've designed it that way on purpose. They've designed it that way to literally hijack your system and keep you coming back for more. So R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris literally around that time started purchasing the big food companies. And then shortly after that, they quickly became the largest food company and producer out there. And so you look at a graph where it shows like all the different companies that are out there and who's connected to who. I've actually got that graph, as a framework in my boot camp. You can see who's connected to who, but what a lot of people don't know is how the cigarette and tobacco companies literally had their hand in making these foods addictive. A lot of people are out there, they got sugar issues, they got hunger issues, they got snacking issues, they got emotional eating. And with the emotional eating, here's the thing about that. There's a lot of people that I know that beat themselves up over emotional eating, constantly putting themselves down and, I just can't control this, and they beat themselves up severely for it. What they are widely unaware of is that a large root of their problem is these industry designed foods that created that issue in them in the first place. And so this is kind of what's gone on with food. And typically, I've got you got the people out there. They're just like, okay, so what do you do? Because this is the way of eating that I've been used to. Well, there's typically 3 things that I give people to get out of that matrix food system. Number 1, start turning the freaking thing over. Plain and simple, just turn it over. I don't care how long you've bought it. I don't care how long that product's been in your house. I don't care if you've thought all these years that what you've been consuming from that product, it's healthy. Turn it over. Turn it over, educate yourself on the ingredients, right? Secondly, buy things with minimal ingredients and ingredients you can understand. Third, better yet, buy things with 1 ingredient. That's how simple it is to step out of the system. But that's what I know of what they're doing. And then you've got the genetically modified crops, which have now become widely mainstream. And so you've got corn, you've got soy, you've got, the wheat and everything else. These are all genetically modified crops that literally require massive amounts of glyphosate to be sprayed on them, which is basically Roundup. So most of your corn and soy and wheat out there, 95% of it is genetically modified and sprayed with pesticides. Then you have the globalists out there that are threatening, like climate change and, we're in danger. The cows caught, they fart into the atmosphere and they carbon monoxide and all this other stuff. When the truth of the reality is it's not us that is doing climate damage. It's actually them with their genetically modified crops and with what they're feeding the cows and different things like that. So the climate change and the whole threat of that and everything else really honestly has nothing to do with us, and it has nothing to do with the cows. Now, do I think cows need to be treated better nowadays? Absolutely. But still. So there's that. And I just find it really interesting. And I'm going into all this because it's all part of the same picture as a whole. But then you have these same people touting climate change and, the environment's in danger and whatever the message they put out there and stuff like that. They're flying their private jets, spewing jet fuels all over the sky, number 1. And number 2, these are the very same people that are buying beachfront luxurious homes on coasts that were supposed to be flooded years ago. So I say all that to make the point that number 1, climate change and all that other stuff, it's a bunch of bunk. And number 2, these are the guys that are damaging our food, our climate, and everything else. So anyhow, I'm going to get off of that bandwagon now. So that was a loaded question and it got a loaded answer. So there you go.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. And it's interesting because this topic is about spiritual integration. And we've been chatting here about the physical health and we are being bombarded with all sorts of stuff. Like, in fact, the fire ant poison is genetically modified corn out of Monsanto, right? So it's all linked. So as people are being bombarded with poisons from the atmosphere, from industry, from whatever, like there's all this stuff in life we cannot control, right? And yet there's so much we can control. And this is where I see our topic today really powerful, spiritual integration. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? And I'd love to ask those who are joining us. We've got Shell Bird on Facebook. Hey, Shell, good to see you. Alice is here. Hello, Alice. Great interview, guys. Loving it. Got to run to yoga. Oh, I love yoga. Enjoy yoga. Alice, beautiful. We've got on Instagram, Squizboo, Robert Mull, good to see you. Prasad, Adelaide, good to see you guys. What does spiritual integration mean to you? And what does that look like? So, Cameron, back to you.
So I would say spiritual integration is moving from the 3D to the 5D. I would say that, with this bombardment of poisons that we've been receiving over the last decades, if not hundreds of years, it has gotten us to a certain point where I feel that we are less than. We are in the body, we are in the ego, we are in states of fear, scarcity, and integration is changing. It's changing our habits. It's changing our thought processes. It's going from the 3D to the 5D. So it's understanding a bit more about yourself. It's gaining more awareness about yourself in ways that we don't have awareness before. Carl Jung, for instance, he says that we are in the unconscious mind 95% of the time. We are the conscious 5% of the time, which means 95% of our behaviors, 95% of the patterns in our life, we are unaware of. And so spiritual integration is becoming aware of that 95% and then doing something about it. So moving from the 3D to the 5D. I think a good example is the food, what Ken was talking about before. If I understand that there's poison in the food, the ramification of that is, excuse my French, stop fucking eating it. It's really that simple. For me, through my experiences, spiritual integration is we're realizing that there's not limited time. Actually, there's infinite time. I am not my body. I am actually greater awareness than my body. That means to me that I'm an infinite, immortal being, spiritual being living a human experience. What's the ramification of that? The ramification is, shit, I don't die. Shit, there's nothing to rush for. Shit, I can just be. I can just be. I don't have to do anything for anyone to get any kind of validation or acceptance. I can just be in this life and I don't have to rush. Wait, I'm actually allowed to stop and smell the roses. So integration is changing our behaviors. It's changing our thought and belief patterns, basically, that have kept us where we are. And I think Einstein says it perfectly. If I continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, it's a definition of insanity. And I do believe right now our civilization is absolutely insane.
Good answer there, Cameron. And what about for you, Ken? What does spiritual integration mean for you? What does that look like?
Well, I definitely believe that absolutely we are eternal and we are spirits in a human body. I definitely see that, as well. For me, I am unapologetically faith-based. I'm unapologetically a Christian. And that's not to say I have a religion. No, I have a relationship with Christ. A religion says this is the path I'm going to follow to get to heaven. And it's basically man's way of getting to heaven. And I have a relationship with Christ because I realize there's absolutely no way I can make it there on my own. But integrating that into my life, integrating my faith into my life is actually a very crucial thing for me to do. As a matter of fact, my own brand and company, I launched that Mastery Weight Loss. I launched it summer of 2020 during my awakening around all things geopolitically, scamdemic, all of it. And that's when I started doing some deep dives around all kinds of different things, the food industry being one of them. And I discovered and made it my passion that I was going to expose those lies and the deception and the mirage that's in front of people's faces. And I'm going to dismantle that. And I'm going to show them the truth. And then I'm going to empower them with that truth so that they can be free again in their food choices. I'm giving the freedom back to the people in that aspect. And about a year and a half ago, I really started leaning in and just asking God to be a part of that brand and part of what I was doing. And that's literally when I watched things blossom. I watched things literally explode in my business. Then he brought me the coach that I currently have now, who is absolutely phenomenal. She's a Christian. She's faith-based. She works with other faith-based entrepreneurs. She literally helped me package everything up, all the deep research, the hours and hours and hours of research that I've done and articles that I've written into a mini educational boot camp that does just that, sets people free. So much so, one of the first clients that I had coming through that said to me, I'm excited to go to the grocery store now. Who the heck even says that? I don't even say that, and I know all the things. But anyhow, in saying all that, that's my answer in showing how important it is to integrate those kind of things into your life. I wish now, for number one, I wish now that I had invited God into my weight loss journey that I had around 13 years ago, which I never did. I just never really thought about it. Was I Christian back then? Yes, but I just didn't really think about it. And my brand and company's been around for going on 5 years now, and only just in the last year and a half I invited him in. I kind of wish now that I would have done that sooner. Where would I be today if I would have done that sooner? So for me, that's what that looks like for me. Integrating that, that into my life.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. It's very interesting. I was brought up Christian as well, actually Greek Orthodox background. I have Greek and Ukrainian Orthodox in my background. And it's interesting because my parents and my grandparents or my grandmom, I never knew my granddads. They both died, before I was born. So never knew my granddads. But my grandma, my dad's mum, she gave me a leather-bound Bible when I was a kid, and I've still got that leather-bound Bible. It's interesting. I just had this flashback to my grandma, and she signed it, and I remember she had really shaky handwriting because she was, she died in her 70s, and she was just not that well physically, and I remember she signed it, so it's one of the most treasured possessions I have is that leather-bound Bible. Even though now I know, I'd rather not buy leather now because of the leather industry. However, back then, that's what I had back then. But it's been really interesting, my journey with spirituality versus religion. And we can chat about this. And I'm going to ask Cameron in a minute the difference of what he sees with spirituality and religion. But, we did mention in the intro that Cameron was given a book, Think and Grow Rich. Now, one of the 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich is faith. Okay, now faith you could see as spiritual, or you could see it as tied in with religion or with religious beliefs. I mean, personally now I believe I have faith in a universal creator, right? I don't know what that looks like exactly. God, I say, is like greater organized design, God, greater organized design. I have faith. I pray to God, universe, etc. I personally, I believe there's a lot of different religions that tap into this universal energy, whatever it is, right? And I think there's a lot of unknowns around this, right? I mean, and we could get in a lot of different interesting discussions around religion, and whatever your beliefs are, I respect you, I honor you, regardless of whatever your religion and faith is, right? I think this is so important that we be kind to people around us, regardless of their religious beliefs or regardless of their faith, that we be kind to those around us. And I think that's one of the biggest things now, with everything we've been through, the pressures of the pandemic and the pressures that we have had all around us by government, in fact, most deaths in the world have been democide. They've been government driven. The most deaths we've had ever. If you look at the history, the number of deaths by government rule have been the most ever. And yet here we are, 99% of people are not government, and yet they live in fear of the government. And so this is where I believe this spiritual integration and awakening is so important, I believe, to live an empowered life now, considering everything that's going on in the world. And faith, to me, I also love Think and Grow Rich. And in fact, I wrote a whole chapter in a book called The Book I Read. I actually wrote a compilation. I'm in about 20 compilation books. And one chapter I wrote was about my learnings from Think and Grow Rich. And this is how I know the 13 principles. And another principle is Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense is another principle in Think and Grow Rich where it talks about that. And that's very, very interesting. Sixth Sense and faith. Right now, Cameron, back to you on that. What are your thoughts around Sixth Sense versus faith, and then religion and spirituality?
Wonderful, Aldwyn. So I'm going to tread this one carefully because I have some extreme views in life. I was a complete atheist, and I believe that it is because intuitively, so my sixth sense, my gut, because of the generation I am, and because of the father that I have, who did tell me to question everything. That sixth sense is something that is like a muscle that can be built over time. I feel that religion is an idea that doesn't stand the test of time, because if I am to believe that God is outside of me, the divine is outside of me, then I have to continuously seek outside of me for comfort, for certainty, for surety, for that connection to God. And I do believe that religion is a man-made idea that makes people or human beings the middleman for God. You know, the priests, the whatever you want to call it. I also see religion as the reason why entire nations went out and committed genocide around the world hundreds of years ago, because look at this, our religion's better than yours, you can't believe that, and if you do believe that, you're my enemy. And I believe only religion can make a man so crazy, where I see faith as a knowing, as an understanding. Faith for me, or being a spiritual being, for me means that it does stand the test of time, because, well, time doesn't really exist within the space that God, divine, love, whatever you want to call it, which I see as everything, call it subatomic particles if you're a scientist at this point in time. And with a subatomic particle, if one thing is everything, then I am you and you are me. And so my faith is that we are inseparable. My knowing is that we are inseparable. And the ramification to that is whatever I do to you, I do to myself. For me, seeing that I had to explore internally, and I get my resources internally from anything external of myself, means that I can stand on my own 2 feet without the need of anything or anyone else, because there is nothing else. It's just one thing. It's unity consciousness. It's the collective consciousness, what Carl Jung would call it. So I would say that religion is has a lot of good stuff, has a lot of beautiful stuff, and yet it's still the middleman. And I'd rather go direct to source.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I love that. I love that. What we do to others, what we do to ourselves, and treat others as you want to be treated. And, you know, and you know, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Buddhist.
Can I put something? This is a really important part. When I realized this, I realized that in order to truly integrate this into my life, which it's not quite there yet because this is extreme, I have to treat the homeless man the same as I would treat my child, because they're the same thing. And if I do not do this, then I am not fully integrating that perspective into my life. And I really believe this.
It's so interesting. It almost goes against how we've been brought up, and the way that the governments work in divide and rule, have people living in fear to divide and rule. I mean, we saw through COVID all the social distancing, right? And people need community. We need to be amongst others. And I must say, that's something I've found in my darkest moments. I have turned to the community of the church. Now, while there's a lot of, sort of Christians that I'm sure have the best interests at heart, we know that there's also a lot of evil that goes back to the Vatican and to the Catholic, situation there, right? So do your own research on that. In fact, behind a lot of elites in the world that do incredible evil, things go back to the Vatican. So do your own research, look up places like BitChute and Rumble on this. Now, some people might think, oh, the Catholics are great, right? And you've got the Protestants, you've got all these different, religions and sects of religions that have had all sorts of wars, as you mentioned, Cameron, between the religions, and yet the faith in ourselves, or the faith in others, as in other people, if we're all connected, then our faith in ourselves and the faith in others would be the same, right?
I feel that a religious ideology leads to persecution, and I can give a direct example of that. My late guru, Yong Nyeva, beautiful man, absolutely beautiful man, who unfortunately passed on, we could say too early, but perfect timing for him. He lived for 30 years with this view, with this view of life in the Philippines, a highly Catholicized country, he lived in secret. He lived in secret because of the persecution his fellow religious individuals would persecute him if he was to verbalize how he saw the world. And so I do believe that these attachments to these ideologies, especially religious ideologies, leads to persecution, because the attachment is, well, this religion that's man-made and using word signs and symbols that says this, well, if that's being attacked because I'm so attached to it now, I'm being attacked, and this leads to the war and genocide. Where I love Buddhism, I love Thailand because Thailand says detachment, which means, okay, well, this idea, it may be real and I might believe it, but when it's being attacked, I'm no longer being attacked. So I don't have to defend or try and attack someone else because my ideology is being attacked. Where Catholicism and a number of other religions do definitely lead to persecution.
So interesting. And I know in Thailand, if you speak against the king or you speak against like authority, that you can get killed over there, right? So there's a lot of this sort of that happens. And I mean, in my ancestry, I have people that were running for their life in Ukraine, and Stalin came in and killed all the kulaks, running for their life, and because they were speaking up against the government, because the government killed, like my granddad, his parents were killed by the government. They were kulaks. They got hung outside their property, and my granddad started to speak up about it, and his friend said, you better get out of here, now they're coming to kill you as well. So people have been shut down and silenced for so long, and I'm just so grateful that we have an element of freedom of speech now, and thank God for social media, because now, and for alternative and free media, because we know there's still a lot of censorship that happens on Facebook and on YouTube. I've had several strikes on my YouTube channel. I'm actually currently streaming to a second YouTube channel because of this, because after 3 strikes, they shut your whole channel down. We had to dig out recently an interview I did in 2016 about Scientology, and about how we've been brainwashed, with a very good friend of mine, Peter Turner, who passed away recently. He was a videographer, filmmaker. We knew each other for 25 years, and only a few weeks ago he had lung cancer and died at 74 years of age. And that interview got censored, it got taken off YouTube, and when we went looking for it, I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I realized it had actually been taken down from YouTube. So I had my team download that video, because what they do is they take it off the public view, but you've still got it in your back end of YouTube. So she took it down, she's re-uploaded it to Rumble, and then I've shared that link with everyone now. So thank God for alternative free media now, that we're getting a bit more, or thank ourselves. Here I'm saying, say thank God, right? Thank ourselves, thank God, or thank universe, whatever you want to say, right? For, for the blessings that we have nowadays of, technology, to be able to reach people across the world and to share freely like this. Ken, what are your thoughts on this? I know, there's been some things Cameron have said have been quite probably against what you maybe think. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, he's got some good points in regards to, persecution and war and different things like that. And yeah, that's all unfortunate. And, I'm going to be the first one to say, hey, I'm not denying that, there is definitely a government influence to set us against one another, Jew against whoever it is, Muslim against Christian, there's an agenda to set us against each other. I definitely see that. But for me, when, I don't know, like I've been a Christian since I was in 10th grade, and, been around, seen a lot, been to different seminars, been to debates and different things like that. And I know in the past, every time I've had doubts or I've gotten stuck in the weeds with some of my beliefs, and especially around 2020 and 2021, around the climax, if you will, of the Great Awakening. Because I really believe that between 2020 and 2022, 2023 was like the big boom of the Great Awakening. There were some things that came across my path and across my ears and eyesight that I was just like, oh, and I just remember I constantly was just praying into that, going, Lord, is this true? Reveal this to me if this is true. And I just found that each and every single time he brought me back to the same path. He brought me back to the same, nope, I'm over here, here I am. And everything's like that. I know that Christ came, and I know that he, I know that that part of the truth of what I believe is very much true. But I also suspect that there's been a little bit of manipulating as far as the overall message. I think there are things that we definitely have not been told. But as far as the belief in my core belief, Christ came, he died, he rose again, and now is my eternal sacrifice, that will never change. That will never, ever, ever change. And God is my father. He is my dad. He is, he means the world to me. But like I said, I do believe that there have been parts, and a lot of those parts have been manipulated by the Vatican. So you are very much correct, Aldwyn. The Vatican is a very big part in the deception of that whole thing. And do I know what some of those things that we haven't been told? I have suspicions, but some of that I may not know until the day that I transition out of this body. And so that's kind of where I'm at with this whole thing. Like I said, I still question everything, and I still, I'm curious, I'm seeking, I'm looking, because like I said, I know that there are things that we have not been told, things that have been hidden from us. But I often also go by a verse that's in the Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 29, and I'll basically just paraphrase it. That which is known to you, live by that. But that which you do not know, pretty much, the verse pretty much goes on to say, that belongs to God. The secret things that you do not know, these things belong to God. But that which you do know, live by that. So what's been revealed to me, I now have an obligation, a responsibility to live by that knowledge, and accountability, if you will. That which I don't know yet, well, that's in God's hands. And when it's the right time for me to know that, he will reveal that to me. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole thing. I don't know if that answers your question, Aldwyn.
Yes,
go ahead. Go ahead, Cameron.
So I just wanted to say, I do appreciate it. And I just want to put it out there. For sure, Jesus Christ is real. Buddha, they're alive and well. Just not the physical body, the physical representation of the spirit. I do 100% know that Jesus Christ is real, Buddha's real as earth, water, fire, and air. And I believe that these are the physical incarnations of the spiritual conscious being, which is simply just a vibrational frequency, from my understanding at this point in time. Mm-hmm. So I never want to deny that, because they are powerful beings, and I send them love. Love, 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 love.
And that's another thing you said, the vibrations and stuff like that. That is something that's recently been a revelation to me. So after my great awakening, it then began to solidify in me that, we do have electric energy coming through our bodies. We have certain vibrations. And it's really funny. One of the days where that really sunk in was the day I unplugged my speakers, but then I touched this little part. And when you touch this little part with your bare hands, see, I can hear the electricity coming through my speaker. That's proof that we definitely have electrical, whatever you want to call it, energy, current, whatever, coming through our bodies. And then there's the whole grounding thing. There's the whole what Earth was meant for us to be at. There's that whole thing. So, oh yeah, absolutely. So anyhow, go ahead and continue. I hope you still have your thought that you wanted to continue on. I just had to insert that. That's kind of some of the new stuff that I've been oh, okay. So yeah.
Well, it was a revelation for me, literally, to go, okay, so they're all real. But it's even more revelation for me to understand, what Tony Robbins said 10 years ago while I was in there, where my focus goes, energy flows. Where my focus goes, energy flows. literally, not metaphorically. And this is the reason why statues exist. So I think that's an interesting point. I just also wanted to say something else while on the topic, the truth about spiritual integration. One of my great mentors, his name is Vijay Swaran. He's an international businessman, billionaire. He has 18 million sales representatives around the world and has lifted millions out of poverty. I still remember probably over 8-9 years ago, he's sitting, we're sitting at dinner, and he says to me, Cameron, there is no truth. Cameron, you're not in control. And I think that's the reason why I spoke about standing the test of time. I believe that because there's so many religions, and a lot of them say very, very similar things, obviously with some differences. How do I know something stands the test of time? And how do I know if something's the truth or not? And because I know that I already have access to limited information in terms of vibrational frequencies that exist around me, I already know that I know nothing. So I'm already a monkey. But on top of that, you go, okay, what is truth? Okay, well, if I believe that this idea is truth right here, and if I take this idea 200 years from now, what am I? Well, I'm probably an ape. If I go forward 200 years, I'm an ape, right? With everything I know right now, if I go and get put 200 years in the future, I'm an ape. If I go backwards 200 years, I'm a magician, a wizard, a sage. That means that information, knowledge is not real. Knowledge is not fixed. There is no actual truth when it comes to knowledge. And I like to go, okay, well, what stands the test of time? Well, me being a single unity with everything else stands the test of time. Me not needing a place of worship because this is the place of worship. I'm inside the place of worship. I am the place of worship. And understanding vibrational frequencies, subatomic particles from a scientific perspective, but also Buddha said it. Buddha said it 2,000 years ago. We didn't have the great big microscopes 2,000 years ago for the scientists to reveal, oh, by the way, holy shit, the subatomic particle, which is the makeup of all reality, appears and disappears. Buddha says, and down in scripture 2,500 years ago, the base layer of reality, the subatomic particle, obviously in different words, but this is the interpretation by people way smarter than I. The base layer of reality appears and disappears. The moment I heard that, I heard that information, it dawned on me, like, what is a pixel of a TV? It's a flashing light. A light, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. The pixel has a frame rate. That frame rate, okay, our consciousness takes that frame rate, okay, those bunch of flashing pixels, flashing lights, and then it creates a solid 2D object in which we can perceive. The subatomic particle is the pixel, but in a 3D format, which is the hologram in which my consciousness is projecting across, because it's not my eyes that see, it's my brain that's putting together the entire picture and then projecting that out for me to experience. And so when I understood that everything that I see is literally unique to me, there is nothing that I see that anyone else sees the way I see it, because what creates the projection is all of the inputs that have been put into it.
Mm-hmm.
It also means that there's no truth. And if I'm fixated on an idea, and this is the reason why the mentors, the gurus, they say pain is in the body, misery is in the mind. Misery is self-created because it's all about my own perception of reality. Talk about integration, the truth about spiritual integration. Well, one, I have to have a healthy level of doubt on everything that I know. Two, if I have a fixed identity, well, then I'm already putting myself in the path of misery, because if I have a fixed identity at some point in time, that's probably going to be pressure tested. And usually, because I believe that no, there is no truth, there is no actual fixed information, this is a flowing river of incredibleness that we are within, then how do I make sure that I'm in flow? So, for instance, a universal truth could be that gravity exists, that when I drop something, it falls down, but then I have to question whether or not that exists in another time and space. If I choose to believe that that is not true and correct, and if I am able to integrate enough energy and power back into myself to take the power back, I want to talk about that actually in a second, which is the biggest part of all of this. But if I'm able to detach from all of these ideas, identity, it means that I am leading myself to liberation. It's a liberation from myself, because my own worst enemy is me. I am the one standing in my own way. I can stop there.
Oh my gosh, that's so good, Cameron. Absolutely.
He's like, I could go on forever, but I'm going to stop there.
Oh, that was so good. Yeah, I was loving hearing all that. I could relate to so much. And actually, what was coming to mind for me was the Out of Shadows documentary, which had 10 million views in a month when it came out. And it was during COVID. It came out in 2020. And it got shut down. And the first line in that movie, Out of Shadows, which is created by 2 Hollywood stunt guys, and it talks about why we believe what we believe. And the very first line in that movie is, why do you believe what you believe, right? And here you are saying, now there's no truth except for the Total Truth Show and everything you hear on this show, of course, because that's why it's called the Total Truth Show. Okay, so other than that, everything else, question everything else, right?
Well, it's in the fifth agreement, right? So there's the 4 agreements, but the fifth agreement by one of the Mexican gurus, spiritual gurus, is to doubt. And the pain and misery that I have suffered through believing ideas. I mean, even now, we are so susceptible to the programming, to the brainwashing and the conditioning to believe my ideology is right and yours is wrong, and so I'm going to fight you for it.
Oh, exactly. And this is probably the foundation of all arguments, is that I'm right and you're wrong. And so what can we actually let go of? As you say, what can we detach from in our minds? Because often, 60,000 thoughts a day we have. And for most people, 98% of our thoughts are the same as we had yesterday, and 80% are negative for most people. And with all of that, where do all these thoughts come from? Where do these beliefs come from? Of course, they're individual, because they are our individual experiences through life and how we've been conditioned and our upbringing and what we study.
When I realized I was programmed, I realized I was programmable, and then I became the active participant in my programming. I became conscious of what I choose to be in this filter in which is projected out. And by changing the filter, my actual reality has shifted. What I see, what I feel, and what I experience has shifted, because I've put myself in the driver's seat to the neural networks in my mind, and which creates everything.
I love that. And this is why you do webinars on reprogram to reinvent, right? So can you share a little bit about what you share? And I've attended a few of your webinars. I'm doing the program with you at the moment with Freedom Collective, absolutely loving it. And the last session we spoke about silence and about, when was the last time you were actually silent? And actually, I was sitting in the sauna the other day, Cameron. I was thinking of you in the sauna, because I thought, does this count to being silent and still? If I'm sitting in a sauna, does this actually count? And I thought, I'm going to bring that to the next session.
Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. Well, the reason why the sauna and the ice bath are so good for us is because it's stress adaptation. Because we live such what's it called? Sedentary,
comfortable lives.
Comfortable.
Yes.
Sedentary. We've got these clothes on that mean that we keep it to a normal temperature all the time. Our cells, so our body has the ability to adapt to stress. And so when we put ourselves through, extreme hot and extreme cold, it literally is like doing a bicep curl for your individual 50 trillion cells. It's phenomenal. But in terms of the questions around the silence and the reprogram to reinvent, I didn't know about an ice bath until I knew about ice bath. I didn't know about Reiki until I knew about Reiki. I didn't know about plant medicines until I knew about plant medicines. I mean, the number of modalities, healing modalities that exist right now are absolutely incredible. And so I'm like, well, if I don't know about them, and I've done 10 years of the best self-development, business education money can buy, Tony Robbins, DeMartini, you name it, hundreds of books. I'm like, holy shit. Oh, well, I want to share this. And I'd have conversations with individuals around the world. As I said before, I've done over the last 6 years, 15 countries, lived in 4. I've spoken to thousands of individuals now. And I found out that not many individuals actually knew about these ideas and topics. And that the way that I was articulating them was beneficial because it was getting the understanding across. Because I had to first learn from a logical, rational, male, masculine perspective, like, I just experienced this. Holy shit. you know, what does that mean? And how do I even try and explain this to another individual? And so what I do is that I basically go through, and I'm trying to consolidate all of this information in hundreds of these books, what it was that I went through, and the process that I went through, and the step by step layered information that I required for me to be comfortable to say, for sure, I am you and you are me. For sure, we are inseparable. I know this. I don't understand it. I don't believe it. I know it to be true, and I'm living it. I'm integrating the living of it. And really, what that spiritual integration is, it's the personal it's the personal congruence with what I know to be true and living that. Ken, you were saying this before. What I know to be true and then living that. See, most individuals, another thing VJ used to say to me when I call them for some help, you say, Cameron, you know the answer. You know the answer to this already. And it frustrated me because when I tried to call them next time for help, those words came into my head, and then I sat with it, and then I knew what the answer was. And I can tell you, I didn't like the answer. And I wanted a different answer. So spiritual integration is the process of becoming congruent with everything that we know to be true and real, and all of our values and morals, and no longer sacrificing our values and morals for comfort or convenience. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, so good. So good.
So then it's like, how do we do that? How do we reprogram? Which Aldwyn, you're doing it? Reading, journaling, anything that brings more awareness. So for instance, mushrooms, psychedelics, it's just a tool to bring more awareness. And then it's what do we do with that awareness, which is the integration.
Interesting.
Yeah, and faith and prayer could bring awareness for some people. I mean, I love ice baths. You know, I've done plant medicine. I've done all sorts of substances to, attempt to access this awareness. I think as a lot of people have, and they can have addictions, and they can have food addictions and work addictions and other things that looking. I think we're all looking for love in some ways. And, for me, like some people look at me as an alcoholic. Not alcoholic, or AA is alcoholics.
I was like, what?
Some people do. Some people definitely see me as an alcoholic. Well, I definitely have my alcoholic tendencies. What I meant to say was workaholic, right? Some people see me as a workaholic, and I absolutely love what I do. I was just speaking with one of my PR clients yesterday. I said, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do PR work. I don't need to do shows. I don't need to do any of this stuff. I do it because I love doing it. And I think that's the trick. And you were talking about flow before there, Cameron. Having flow. We have these amazing tools around us. Some people turn to food. Some people turn to all sorts of things to find love, or I think everyone wants joy. And if we talk about Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness, the highest vibrations we're going to feel are going to be love, gratitude, peace, and enlightenment. Right? They're the highest vibrations when you look at Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness. Our very lowest vibrations, we are in fear, we're in shame, grief, guilt, all those kind of vibrations, right? So it's just actually having an awareness as we go through this human experience as spiritual beings, having a human experience, as Cameron said, right? We are spiritual beings. We know this. We know the minute we die, our bodies become lighter. The minute we die, our spirit, our soul goes somewhere. Where does it go? Well, who knows? We've had people that have died and come back, and they've seen light, and they've seen their life flash before their eyes. And I mean, what happens? What's your thought? What happens when we die, Cameron?
I am 100% sure we go to another realm and basically remember this entire life. And actually, we remember everything because actually we're a collective consciousness. And so 100%, we basically seemingly go into a constant bliss state. It's blissful. It's nothing that words can describe, because we don't have the words in the English language to describe the profound nature of this actual reality, because they're just simple signs and symbols. To experience what it's like to have a level of love and bliss I like to call it this. So now I thought I'd had ecstasy before. I really thought I'd had ecstasy. But when I went into some of these experiences with ritualistic, in the middle of the Mexican jungle with shamans holding space for me, it's like every single cell in my body lighting up like a Christmas tree and having an orgasm at the same time. I can only say that all you can do is lay there with your arms open, and I'm pretty sure I was just moaning and screaming from the pleasure. It was extraordinary, and I do believe that that's where we basically go, because based upon what I've heard from a lot of the individuals I've spoken to around the world who have had the death experiences. One lady in particular, she died on the operating table while giving birth. Unfortunately, the baby died. She came back. Since then she was blissful, because once you have a death experience, so in Bufol, which is 5-MeO-DMT, in ibogaine, in mushrooms, in these psychedelics, you can have death experiences, which is terrifying at the time because you believe you're dying, because technically you're getting the experience of death. I can share, because I've had this before, multiple times. It's liberating, because then you're no longer afraid of death, because death is not real, in the sense that we've been told you should fear death. Once we're done, you're done. You're dead. That's it. No, death is nothing to be feared. Without birth, we cannot have death. Without death, we cannot have birth. That simple statement should say to individuals that it doesn't just stop. There's no stopping. We are infinite, eternal beings, and what we do in this life can affect the next life. And so the reason why the religion talks about all this stuff is because there is seemingly a truth to it. There seems to be hell and there seems to be heaven, but that's all here right now. It's nowhere else. That seems to be the vibrational state in which we are in. And perhaps what we did in a previous life determines where we are in this realm, in this reality. I now see suicide. So I started a mental health company, right? Hundreds of thousands of individuals we now take care of in Asia. I just recently sold that company. We at the point in time, we had dozens of psychologists working with individuals. And if you look at the way individuals live their life, again, we're talking about the truth about spiritual integration. Even the way that spiritualists, the ones who talk about this, a lot of them, religion, even atheists, the ramification of my belief that I don't die means that I should be living life like I do not die, but most cannot do that because of the fears, the reservations that they hold. What would I do if I didn't die? What boundaries and limitations would I break if I did not die? I have been living this. This is the reason why most people think that I'm a bit crazy, because, well, it's the exact opposite. It's the biggest fear that most, well, actually, I think public speaking, or the fear of ridicule and the fear of abandonment, is probably larger than the fear of death at this point in time. Most people would rather die, and that's the reason why suicide is an option. I also, through these experiences, I see suicide as something completely different. Now, yes, there is, and I can say this from my direct experiences, I've pushed the boundaries in many different ways. Yes, there is, this is so painful, this is so painful, this is so painful, I'm going to end it. But there's also a knowing that this entire reality is an illusion. I go, okay, well, I'm done here. Bang. I'll move on to the next round. There's the flip side. There are both extremes. That's the duality of this reality. Yeah.
So much gold there, Cameron. Absolutely love what you're sharing. Now, if you do need to hop off, let us know. I know you've got your farm to get back to and all sorts of things going off. So going on, I should say, not going off. Hopefully nothing's going off, but it's hopefully all going on. But anyway, it's all about perspective, isn't it? It's about perspective and what you look at, how you look at it, what you believe to be true, and having the best experience of life that you can have. So now you're in Thailand, you're in love. I'm so happy for you. And what does it look like for you to be fully spiritually integrated? You mentioned a few things. You mentioned reading. You mentioned, what are a few things that you do to stay spiritually integrated?
It's a constant, never-ending work. I can honestly say that I was a womanizer because that was what I was brainwashed to believe was real. I objectified women. I can honestly say that I was an alcoholic. I was addicted to sex. I can honestly say that I believed people who were depressed were weak, and I believed that if you were gay, that was bad because of my upbringing. And so the process of seeing these dogmas and stigmas in ourselves and to stop participating in them is the single largest thing. And I integrated a lot with myself over many years. Actually, full time, I was given the gift of being able to step back and not have to do any work. And so I spent full time meditating, journaling, working on my health. That's the reason why I lost 15 kilos. And then I have to integrate with my beautiful partner. Now it's how do I best hold space for myself and the other individual to be able to say things that bring me discomfort, and how do I continue to come with compassion and love to the other individual rather than be triggered as the child self or the teenager self for the CPTSD, which is the complex trauma in which nearly every single one of us have or had at some stage in our early childhood upbringing. It's reparenting the young Cameron who wasn't psychologically or emotionally safe to express himself as a child. It's going back to the memories of let's say, bad, terrible memories. And it's about changing those memories in my mind and then giving myself, the younger self, comfort that, hey, they do have the resources and the care and the love necessary to be able to make it through. And they'll be very proud of the other individual. And it's all the way to extent where it's like, okay, well, now I have to face myself. Just this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I spent 7.5 hours across 3 sessions doing hypnosis and regression to be able to stop my habitual behavior of smoking cannabis. Now, it's not that I believe that cannabis is a bad thing or ganja is a bad thing, but I do believe that if I can't control something, it controls me. If it controls me, it takes my power. If it takes my power, I don't have any control. It's basically being stolen away from me. So if it's a thought or belief system or ideology or behavior that I can't control, whether it's cigarettes, porn, work, honestly, work's a big one. If I have to keep working, whatever it is that I am doing that controls me, it means that I'm distracting myself away from something else. There is some layers, depth and shadow and darkness in me that my consciousness is trying to protect me from seeing. And so thus I'm going to distract myself. And that's the reason why most people are so busy. Again, literally, even if I'm resting all the time, but the same as working all the time. I realized I was running as hard and as fast as I could. I did 8 companies. I've done 7. Well, before this awakening, it was 7 companies in a short period of time. I was working and going so hard and so fast because I was distracting myself from these inner shadows, from the darkness in which I didn't want to observe. And so the integration is becoming aware of these things and then continually trying things to stop it. So for instance, the cannabis, the first thing I did was not to go, okay, I'm done. The first thing I did was, let's see if I can have some control over this. Let's see if I can get my power back. And so literally for 18 months, my goal was 5 days a week off it, 2 days a week on. I could have some, control. I didn't want to be one of those individuals, which unfortunately I did not succeed, who says I have to go cold turkey because I wanted to maintain that level of control. Now, after 18 months, that didn't work. And so at this point in time, I was like, okay, well, it hasn't worked. I've tried that. Now I'm going to try something else. And not quitting, not just going, oh, okay, it's done. I can't do that. It's not possible. It's like, okay, if something is incongruent with the way that you're currently living your life, it is change your environment. If your friends are shitty friends, make new friends. Change the state in which you live in. Change the country in which you live in. If you have people around you, human beings or people, personas, masks, okay, who reduce and lower your vibrational frequency, first communicate with them, be honest with them. Don't just cut them out of your life without any, communication whatsoever. See if you can bring them with you for the change and the rise in vibrational frequency that you can go through. But if they choose not to do the work, and if they continue to regress back into the behaviors that hurt you, make some hard decisions. Hard decisions are hard. And if this spiritual integration process was easy, everyone will be doing it. But guess what? They're not. There's much more than ever before. And so I invite you to take a really good look at yourself, do an energy reflection. Where am I spending my energy? If it's in fear, social media, in drugs, alcohol, work, have a look at where I'm spending my energy, do an audit of my time and go, okay, well, is this congruent with who I am and who I want to be? And if not, I invite you to do something about it. And if you want a bit of help, then you can go to Ken's stuff, you can go to Aldwyn's stuff, you can come to the Reprogram to Reinvent. It's free. And even the Freedom Collective is very low cost, to be surrounded by individuals who are not just talking about it, but they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Cameron, so much gold. I love all this. And the program that you're doing is phenomenal. And the free webinars I've hopped on, I've got so much out of it. Great. You go into great detail with your work, and it's very heart-centered, which I absolutely love. There's no BS with your training. And, so for those who want to come to one of your webinars, where can they go?
So there's a link that's going to be here. It's called the Reprogram to Reinvent. My website's henosis.life. Now, right now that needs to be updated because I have been busy building a farm, which is a bit of a change in direction for me. But next Tuesday, so I highly recommend registering. Next Tuesday, there will be a free Reprogram to Reinvent. I've updated the slides. I've actually reduced the amount of information in it because it can be very overwhelming for some individuals. I talk very quickly, so I'm trying, again, integration. I'm slowing down. So actually, in the Freedom Collective, the next catalytic conversation is slow down to speed up. Ken?
I resonate with that so many ways, like how you were explaining that you talk really fast. I resonate with that, because when I get on my bandwagon and I start talking about all the things that I'm passionate about, I just start blah, 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 and I have to remember, like something my coach always tells me. She's like, you need to remind yourself not to become a fire hose. There's only so much that people can retain at one time. And if you give them too much information, their brains just can't handle it. And so I've had to remember in a lot of instances, especially when I've just been introduced to a brand new person, potential client, it's really important on the front end not to overdo that and just keep things really, really simple. And so doing that has been huge, but man, when you get, like a really good example is, how when I was talking about the industry and what, I mean, that was one of the bandwagons. It was like, whoosh, here's the hose. So, yeah.
Yes. And I can relate too. And look, the fact that we've all been diagnosed or had ADHD has nothing to do with this at all. And if you do have ADHD, welcome to the club. And most of our entrepreneurs out there do have ADHD, and it's just a label at the end of the day. It's just a label at the end of the day. But, you know, I did a free publicity secrets workshop multiple times, 4 hours with a 10-minute break, and it was so much content. And I have amazing 5-star reviews. So, yes, I have also done this many times, where it gives so much information. And yes, it can be overwhelming for some people. However, I also see it as if you're in the flow, I believe in giving lots and lots of value, lots of great content. And if people can't handle it, well, maybe they just need to shift their vibration. That's my thoughts about that. And maybe they
I love that.
Up their thoughts a little bit. Maybe they just need to speed up their thoughts a little bit to keep up with what we're saying here, to pick up what we're putting down, right?
Right. I love that. Oh my gosh. You know, and a good example of, you know, so here's an example, but here's an example how a lot of information can be a good thing. So Aldwyn, I'm going to use you as an example. Midway through my boot camp, you went through my boot camp.
Yes.
Midway through my boot camp, as you discovered all the things, what did you do? You sat there and you teared up because it became overwhelming for you, right?
I could not believe some of the things I was hearing, where I felt so hoodwinked. I felt so lied to. I felt so angry about, you know, the food industry and the things that I believed to be true that perhaps weren't. And, you know, it was really challenging my beliefs.
Yeah. But what happened as a result of knowing that? You came out on the other end of that boot camp empowered. Your life changed because of discovering that. That's one example of giving a lot of stuff. Now, granted, my boot camp is split up into 3 different phases with me, but I designed that to be impactful like that in the way that it was with you, because you came out, you changed. You will never look at food the same way ever again. Yeah,
and this is the beautiful thing about education and then integration. We're talking about spiritual integration here, right? Now, it's one thing knowing, but if you're not doing, then what's the point of knowing? And since the boot camp with you, I have been checking the ingredients on everything. I turn the freaking thing over and I check the ingredient. And I must say, some of them are very hard to read. And it's been interesting, all the vegetable oils. And we did a whole episode about seed oils, actually, which was fascinating. And it's the same with the work I'm doing with Cameron. Like, I'm getting this awareness. Like, as I was sitting in the sauna, I'm thinking to myself, now, does this count? Because I said to Cameron, you know, because he's saying, when have you last sat still and done nothing? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I couldn't remember one time I've sat still and done nothing, because, you know, yes, I've meditated, but it's usually there's been a guided meditation going on. So there I was sitting in the sauna thinking, now, does this count to sitting still and doing nothing? Because I was like in the sauna, like, does that count? And so, you know, it's actually helped to shift the way. And I've done saunas for years, and it's a fine. Okay, Cameron's saying a bit of a grey area there, but you know, it's interesting that once you know, you don't ever unknow. However, what actions are you taking on any journey that you're on in life? And with spiritual integration, Cameron's mentioned some great things there: journaling, plant medicines, meditation. All successful people I know meditate, and all successful people I know read as well. Now, I've been consuming books through audio books and through book summaries on YouTube and things like that. However, it is very different when you're actually putting pen to paper and you're actually journaling, or when you're actually reading an actual hard copy book. There's something beautiful about too. And even if it's just to minimize the screen time that we have, which can lead to screen time. If you're doing too much screen time, you could definitely be, you know, screaming, or your eyesight will start to go, in which case you won't be able to see the ingredients on the packets, because your eyesight's going to start going from too much screen time, in which case you're going to have to take a magnifying glass with you everywhere, or have that app on your phone. So we'll start wrapping up shortly. But Cameron, some final thoughts on our topic today.
Thank you, Aldwyn. I appreciate it. It's awesome. I love your integration. I love it so much. I really do.
Thank you.
If I learn these new aspects and then I don't do anything about it, it means that I'm regressing. So regression is a Carl Jung term of going back into the old patterns of behavior, and nothing really changes. And so the truth about spiritual integration is that, again, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. You can't expect it to be hard. It's a lifelong process. It will never stop. And anyone who says to you, yeah, I'm saved and I'm done and there is nothing else that I need to do, doesn't know what they're talking about, because it is a lifelong process. There is continuous series. Remember, 95%, if you haven't even started this process yet and you're listening to this, 95% of all your behaviors are given to you from somebody else, and likely somebody else that doesn't like you. So, you got to get rid of these belief systems, these patterns, in order to be able to move forward with your life. I would like to leave it with this. Your consciousness leaves out more than it lets in, to the factor of 1 billion. So 99.9999999% of this actual reality exists outside of the realm of our experience. What does that mean? For instance, we can only hear between 20 and 20,000 hertz. That's 19,980 lines of code. Now, if you extrapolate and you go what the scientists have measured from the hertz, the number of lines of code that exist in this reality from a hertz perspective, there's 3 billion. So we can hear 19,980 and 3 billion exists. Now, if you go to the visual spectrum and any one of our sensing organs, and then you have the spectrums that we don't have sensing organs for. One of those particular is the gut feel, the intuition. There's a reason why men with holding steel sticks can find water under the ground. There is much more to this reality than we can possibly ever perceive. We are monkeys, okay? We know nothing because we don't have access to the information. If I can't see, feel, hear, touch, or experience 99.99999% of the information, it means I know jack shit. And so the moment I think, I limit. And so if I take all of that, I can share with you that I am my own worst enemy. You are your own worst enemy. And the best way to be able to help yourself is to get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. Try to stop fighting things that come up. And, it's so much easier said than done. I could say these things, but I know how difficult it is. And then do the work. Honestly, I invite you to do the work. I invite you to do the work for yourself and what these two lovely individuals have been striving to do, which is to raise the vibrational frequency of Mother Earth, to help our consciousness awaken. Do your part, because no one else is going to do it for you.
It's an inside job, right?
It's an inside job, yeah. We continually screw ourselves. It's very easy to see the self-sabotage and limiting behaviors after you see it. But until then, it's 95% unconscious, because it's a programmed behavior in which I don't have control over. And then going back to what I said at the start, whether you believe me or not, do your research. You are your programs. You need to become aware of those programs. And if you don't, then you can't become the active participant in the being that you're going to be in the future, which means you're living someone else's dream. You're living someone else's life. You're a person, which comes from persona, which is a mask, which means a fictitious individual that is being presented to the world, not your real self. And the world needs your authentic self. The world wants your authentic self. The world loves your authentic self. And when that comes through, it's going to shine brighter than any star, and your life will change. And if you're there already, yay, I high five you, and I can't wait to resonate with you at some point.
Oh, love it. Thank you so much, Cameron. And it comes back, you're talking about intuition, and back to the principles from Think and Grow Rich. We talked about sixth sense, and I know there's going to be people wondering what the 13 principles are of Think and Grow Rich. So I'm going to very quickly rattle them off, and we will wrap up shortly with this show. But I'd like you to look into your life, these principles of Think and Grow Rich, of how you implement or how these things have played out in your life. So we've got desire, faith, auto-suggestion, specialized knowledge, we've talked about, imagination, organized planning, decision-making, persistence, using a mastermind, sex transmutation, and sixth sense. Now, they are so powerful, and I know many people have read Think and Grow Rich multiple times. They've earmarked it, they've highlighted things. I mean, if you have read it, I recommend read it again. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. There's so much wisdom, and that book was written so long ago, and it already still has so much impact today and is so relevant to today's world, I believe. And was there something particularly out of those 13 principles at the time when it helped transform your life, Cameron? Was there something particularly that stood out for you out of those principles?
So I was lucky enough. Dad sent me 20 copies. So he sent me a massive box 20 copies of Think and Grow Rich, and I finally did read it. It took me a little while to read it. Really, actually, it was the belief that it instilled in me that I could actually do something. I can actually do something with my life. I can be someone. You know, I can choose the pathway in which I would like to live my life. And so ever since then, it gave me the seed that I've been watering my entire life to say, well, dream big, make the most of this gift that we've been given because we chose to be here, and believe that we can. The one that was the hardest one for me to see was the sex transmutation. That's taken me my entire life. Basically, it's only the last few years that has shown, because my consciousness was stopping me from seeing that to be truth. I mean, I would read that. I've read Think and Grow Rich perhaps maybe a dozen or so times. The first half a dozen times, I kind of skipped over that, or I rolled my eyes, right? And so now finally putting that into practice through semen retention. By the way, something really interesting. If the male, you know, there's a testosterone problem in the male population because of many factors. One being the fact that we have microplastics in our balls, but also the fact that we're addicted to porn, etc., etc., etc. If a man retains his semen for 14 days, on average, his testosterone increases by 40%.
Wow.
So you know, learn about this stuff and then again change. So, you know, I was addicted to porn. Guess what? I don't watch porn anymore because luckily I have self-control. And once I learned, okay, shit, this is really bad for me, I'm letting go of the best nutrients in which my body can produce on a daily basis. And then my body has to use the best energy that my body can produce to reproduce those best vitamins and minerals, and then consume all of the good stuff from my body and put it into the life in my balls. I was like, well, I should probably stop getting rid of that.
Oh.
It just made sense to me.
Wow. Well, my balls certainly haven't dropped, and I have no idea what you're talking about. However, you know, it sounds fascinating. I definitely want to find out more. And now we know why a lot of guys are so horny all the time, right?
It's a trained it's a program, basically. You know, I like, you know, Sadhguru. I know he's one of the, you know, the globalist people, kind of stuff. And again, I can't question much because I don't know anything, but I have done his program, and he does talk about. He goes, control your instincts, control your urges, because are you an animal? Are you an animal that doesn't have self-awareness and you have no control, or are you evolving into the spiritual being that you are? Like, why are you giving yourself excuses to continue these behaviors that you know do not serve you? It's so true. You know, a lot of individuals talk about spiritual bypassing, you know, the human experience. Like, I mean, there's aspects of that is true. There is spiritual bypassing happening within the reality, within this realm. But at the same time, like, what do I want to become? I want to evolve. I don't want to stay back where we were before. I want to move forward. And so in order for me to move forward, I have to overcome my instincts. I have to overcome these urges. And if I can't, then I have to do hypnosis to help me.
Yes, and if you are like a lion, talking of animals, I just thought of the lion. Did you know that lions, the lion pairs can mate up to 50 times in 24 hours, usually every 15 to 30 minutes, the lions are mating. Isn't that interesting? Now, I mean, there's probably not much else to do out in the jungle. However, you know, I mean, they're having a field day, so to speak. Is that bad for the lion? I guess they've got to do all they can to reproduce, right? This is what we're here on the planet for, right? This is our instinct. Our base instinct is to reproduce.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to have to shoot off.
Yes, Cameron,
thank you so much.
Yeah, look, it's been amazing having you on, and we do need to run. We've got a few quick comments. Just before you run, just if you want to add anything here, Erin has said they're removing history. They're removing history. We all fight in what we believe. How far does the rabbit hole go? Always ask those questions. What are we? Where did we come from? Etc. Yes, we are energy. Our aura is an electromagnetic field. This is our six senses. Any comments on that? Agree with that?
Thumbs up.
Yeah, okay, Erin, very good on that one. And then Erin's made another comment here. Binaural beats frequency is a tool that can be used for different purposes, free on YouTube. Yes, that's a great one. Binaural beats. Thank you for that, Erin.
I use that from time to time as well. I like that. Yep.
Yeah, that is awesome. And we've got Yogi Sharma, Real Estate's joined us, Karen Collins on Instagram. Thank you so much for being with us. And of course, hop along to Cameron's amazing free webinar and get into his course if you can. I was just saying to Cameron earlier, I'm so grateful to be part of his foundation group. And so it's a really intimate group at the moment, which is awesome. We're getting a lot of attention. However, before long, it's not going to be an intimate group and you're not going to get as much attention as we're getting now. So I recommend hop in now before Cameron becomes huge and famous, and we won't be able to get access to him soon because he'll just be on the biggest stages of the world, etc. So go to go.henosis, HENOSIS.life, LIFE /reprogram -to-reinvent -opt-in. Now, do you have a favorite quote or motto you want to share with us, Cameron?
Yeah, it's going to inspire action. I think this is the same one I used last time, and I couldn't think of another one that was as powerful as this one just yet. And that is, I do what I do today that others will not, so I can do what I do tomorrow that others cannot. Live your best life, and by actually stepping out of your comfort zone, you will grow. And that's, I really believe, the point of life is to grow, because if I'm not growing, I am dying.
I love that, Cameron. And if people want to connect with you directly, where can they reach you also, other than the website there?
Instagram, Inspire Freedom without the O, so Inspire Freedom. Facebook at Cameron Quin. I got my other pages going. LinkedIn, if you really want from a professional perspective. I also have a supplements brand coming out. We're raising a significant amount of money. We're going to be one of the first to be able to legally produce psilocybin mushrooms for the export market around the world. I mean, there's so many projects happening at the moment. So, yeah, get in touch and hopefully we can do something and resonate together. I want to say, Aldwyn and Ken, again, like I said before we even started, thank you so much for the consistency. 98 episodes, how fantastic is that?
Thank you.
To be able to step up every single time. So thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank
it's
you,
our
Cameron.
pleasure having you here. Total pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you. Have fun on the farm. And
I will. I'm about to go buy a welding helmet because I've got one. I've got one of the guys already welding, and I weld as well to be able to speed things up. So I'm pumped. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm about to go get hot and sweaty.
Thank you, Cameron. Enjoy. We'll think of you out there as we wrap up the show here. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you so much. Let Cameron know in the comments what you have enjoyed about this show. And I'm sure he'll check those comments later, what you've got out of this. And Ken, for those who want to connect with you, my friend, where can people go?
All right. So, hey, guys. So you've heard me allude to some things regarding the health, wellness, and food industry. I have lost 62.5 pounds, and I've been able to keep that off for going on 7 years now, all without a diet and having that be sustainable. And right now, I'm giving away my 3 secrets to help you break free from the hunger addictions, the snacking issues, the sugar addictions, the emotional eating, all of it, all in just 3 phases with me. So you'll be equipped with an empowered mindset shift, number 1. Number 2, you will be equipped to see past the industry lies and avoid the common pitfalls. And number 3, you will be equipped to see past the marketing deceptions of this industry. They tout food to be healthy. They advertise it as low calorie, this and that. And people are buying into it hook, line, and sinker. Unbeknownst to them, it's just marketing deception. And so I help you break free from all of that in 3 phases with me. And that my educational boot camp has been valued at $1,500. And right now it is going for $97 for as long as that price lasts, because my coach is already hinting to me it's time to raise the prices again. So I would jump aboard. So if you're if you're wondering if, you've got an instinct or gut that says, yeah, I know I've been lied to around food and the industry and stuff like that, but you're missing some of the pieces, this boot camp is for you, for sure. So, I mean, if you want to break free from all of that stuff, sugar addictions, hunger issues, all of it, this boot camp is for you. For as long as it lasts, it's going for $97. How you can get involved with that boot camp is my link that Aldwyn will put up on the screen here. That is www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. At the top of the page there, or towards down the bottom where you see like links there, the very first one is to join my boot camp. So you can join my boot camp there. The other 3 links, there's a link to book a free assessment call with me. If you got questions, or maybe you just need to be pointed in the right direction, get on a free call with me. Get on a Zoom call with me. Connect with me on Facebook. That's also a link there. And then also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I have lots of great content on. And and then my quote for today is by Carl Jung.
Jung.
I'm not even,
Carl Jung. Carl Jung.
Thank you. Thank you for saving me from last name slaughtering, as I commonly do. The quote is, until you make the unconscious conscious. Let me repeat that. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and it will call it fate. True integration means becoming aware of your habits, beliefs, and choices so you can change them intentionally.
Beautiful, Ken. I love that. And I do want to share something before I share my link and my quote for today. I want to share something. I was actually thinking of you yesterday, Ken. Now, some of you might know my and I'll share why in a moment. Because I learned something about my dad yesterday that I did not know about him, and he's 87 years of age. Okay, now my mum went into hospital, some of you know, 3 months ago. She got knocked over in her home in Bribie Island under the care of a carer. And that 3 months in hospital where she has had a broken arm, she has gone from being able to walk to not being able to walk, being able to feed herself to not being able to feed herself. After 3 months in hospital, she's coming home today. And, this is massive. And so in that time, and I'm very grateful that I have a media business. I work from my laptop. I can work or play anywhere in the world like this, which is awesome. I've been spending a lot of time with my dad. Now, my mum's 81. She's got dementia. My dad's 87. He's had 4 heart attacks, prostate cancer, diabetes. And since mum has been in hospital, they've been married 55 years. And since mum's been in hospital, all sorts of health issues have been coming up for him because he's been very stressed. Suddenly you're 55 years with someone, they're in the house, you share your whole life with them, and suddenly they're put into hospital and they can't walk and they can't feed themselves. Now, it's had a very big emotional impact. However, one of the blessings through that time is I have had a lot of quality time with my mum and with my dad. And yesterday I was asking Dad about my name. Now, I know Aldwyn was named after a friend of my parents, and this lady Aldwyn, who was the wife of a guy called Bill Dennett. And now Bill Dennett was a very strong Christian. And this is why I thought of you, Ken. I'll share in a moment about Bill Dennett and how my dad came to meet Bill Dennett. But Bill Dennett's wife, Aldwyn, she died when mum was 8 months pregnant to me. Now, she was in her 50s. She died of cancer. And my dad was sharing and reminiscing about Bill and Aldwyn Dennett and how beautiful they were as a couple, and how helpful they were when they first migrated to Australia in 1970 from Turkey. Now, when Dad was in Turkey, he was actually given the name of Bill Dennett by one of the pastors in a church in Iskenderun in Turkey, where my dad was. And this pastor from this Turkish church gave Dad this number of Bill Dennett and said, when you get to Australia, I want you to contact this guy, Bill Dennett. Now, what I didn't know until yesterday, and it was actually as my dad and I were driving back from hospital after feeding mum dinner the last night, she was going to be in hospital after 3 months. And Dad shared with me how Bill Dennett used to do outreach he used to do Christian outreach in King's Cross in Sydney. And King's Cross is like, it's a place where all the prostitutes and drug addicts hang out. It's like, it's where it all happens. All the darkness happens right in the middle of Sydney. And Dad used to do outreach with Bill Dennett every Sunday night. He did it for 2-3 years. And I had no idea that Dad did this until yesterday at 87 years of age. Now, what was interesting about that is I thought of you, Ken, because I know, how much faith is so important for you, and the Christian faith specifically, and the Christian outreach. And Dad shared with me how they were so close to him, Bill and Aldwyn Dennett, how they were so close to my mum and my dad in those early years when they migrated to Australia in 1970. And there I was. I had absolutely no idea that Dad did 3 years of outreach in King's Cross as a new migrant to Australia, reaching out and sharing faith with the locals, And I said to Dad, "Gee, you must have seen all sorts of things there in King's Cross in those years, right? This would have been back in the in the 70s and 80s in King's Cross. There was, like, if you imagine in LA, okay, what's like the red light district, like I've been to Inglewood in LA, and I know when I went to Inglewood, there were security guards outside saying, don't go outside at night by yourself. There were prostitutes, drug addicts. It was all happening in Inglewood. Now, is there an area, now I don't know about red light district in Inglewood in LA, but if you think about your town and where's that kind of area for you, that's where Dad used to do this outreach. And there was something that Bill Dennett said to him when Dad said to Bill, he said, "I'm so sorry that your wife Aldwyn has died." And Bill said to him, "Michael," he said, "don't be sorry," because he said, "God never makes mistakes." God never makes mistakes. And that really moved me. It's moving me now. And I, whatever you believe God to be, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, whatever your faith is, I believe having faith is one of the crucial things in life to help us not just survive, but actually thrive through life, to have a great experience of life in the short time that we have on the planet. Like my friend Peter Turner died just a few weeks ago, 74 years of age, suddenly gets cancer, 3 weeks later is dead. Right. The older we get, I know the older I get, the more people I see die around me. And I lost a lot of friends through COVID. The more it makes you appreciate life. And in some ways, I'm so grateful that Mum actually had this fall, because I have had so much quality time with my mum in the last 3 months as I've been feeding her nearly every night in hospital. I spend 2, 3, 4 hours with her in hospital, feeding her, being present with her. Whereas when she was walking around of her own accord, I rarely connected with her. A week before Christmas, everything changed in that scenario. And I've had amazing conversations with my dad where I'm still learning about him at 87 years of age. And so I invite you, as we wrap up this show here about the truth about spiritual integration, where could you allow yourself some more time with your faith, with your beliefs, and with those who you love? I do believe everyone we have in our life, they're here, for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, as they say. People have come into your aura, into your vicinity for a reason. And if you haven't had some quality time with your family, with your loved ones lately, then please make some time for them, because you might be surprised what you find out. And so much wisdom to share. We're all teachers, we're all learners. There is so much there. So before I share about how people can connect with me, and I'm actually going to share a few quotes today. Is there anything you want to say about what I just shared, Ken?
I'm almost speechless. Like, that's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible, Aldwyn. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Yeah, that's such a special moment. And yeah, it's correct. God doesn't make mistakes. Never has, never will. He's unchanging. He's forever the same, today, yesterday, and forever. We are often the ones that move. We are often the ones that move away from him. We are often the ones that disconnect. We are often the ones that let go. But he never, ever lets go of us. He remains the same today, yesterday, and forever. And no, he doesn't make mistakes. If God was capable of making a mistake, that would literally thwart the entire definition of what God is.
And so, I'm grateful for Aldwyn Dennett, who passed away in her 50s. cancer. I'm grateful I was given her name. And Aldwyn actually means old one, old friend. And I'm grateful for Bill Dennett, he actually died just recently at 93 years of age. He remarried an American lady, actually ended up living in America, in Texas. And he was a very tall guy. Dad was saying he married a very short woman, and they met through the church in Texas. And then she wrote a book. She wrote a book about their life, and because they did a lot of outreach in third world countries, and very very giving people. Very selfless, I would say selfless people who did their best to bring faith into communities where perhaps there was no faith, whatever that looks like for you. So thank you for sharing that. And now my quotes for today, I'm going to share a few because I found a few I really love. You can't have a physical transformation until you have a spiritual transformation. Another one, it is not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves. Right? Cameron was talking about the connection between us and God. And then this one here, nothing binds you except your thoughts. Nothing limits you except your fear. And nothing controls you except your beliefs. Isn't that beautiful? I'll read that one again.
Wow.
Nothing binds you except your thoughts. Nothing limits you except your fear. And nothing controls you except your beliefs. So very, very cool. Love that. Now, for those who want to connect with me, just hop along to my linktree/Aldwyn. In there, you will find some free media resources. You'll find a link to our monthly Global Good News Challenge, which is all about sharing gratitude and good news in the world, helping to decrease depression and suicide rates and lift the energy on the planet. And thank you to all of our Good News Crusaders that we have had up until now. I'm very proud, particularly of Felisa Moffat. She has done every monthly challenge this month so far. Well done, Felisa. Also, Narelle Gaddy, Leanne Clune. Thank you for our Good News Crusaders. And it is free marketing for you, and you will feel amazing when you share gratitude and good news. So check out the Global Good News Challenge Facebook page. You'll see all the details in there. You can check out our Rumble, our YouTube. You can check all the social links, Spotify. If you haven't liked and reviewed our Total Truth Show on Spotify yet, please do that. We would absolutely love that. We'd love to get more viewers to our shows, whether it's audio or video. We've been streaming out today to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram. Thank you to our Instagram viewers. We've got Squizboo, Robert Mole, Prasad Adelaide, Yogi Sharma, Karen Collins, Natalie King have joined us. Let us know, what have you got out of this today? Let us know in the comments, what have you got out of this? And if you think someone else can benefit from today's show, which of course they will, then please share the love. Also, for those on Facebook who've joined us, thanks to Shell. Thank you so much to Shell Bird, to Alice Muse, to Erin Hivonen, who I can see here. I'm sure there were many others. We have Over the Counter Orthodoxy on Twitch has joined us. Thank you so much. And for everyone else who's joined us, let us know what you got out of today's show and what action are you going to take from today's show to help with your spiritual integration, with your alignment. And perhaps it's being kinder to those who have a different viewpoint to your own. Perhaps it's being kinder to yourself. Any final words today, Ken, before we wrap up?
No, I think we've said it all.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And thank you, huge thank you to Cameron Quin. Phenomenal guy. Check out his webinar. Again, for those, if you missed the link earlier, I will quickly pop that up for you for Cameron. Make sure you get along. You'll get a lot out of his free webinar, and his program's amazing. The Freedom Collective is brilliant. Totally loving it. Here it is here. go.henosis.life/reprogram-to-reinvent-opt-in. Check out Cameron there. And of course, linktree/Aldwyn for me is linktr.ee/Aldwyn, ALDWYN, for those who are on the audio. Thank you to all of our supporters. Thank you to everyone who tunes in regularly. We love you, and we send you amazing, positive vibes for a phenomenal rest of your day and for a phenomenal life. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ken. And our 100th show's coming up soon, and we have a very special guest. Ken doesn't even know. I've got a special guest that Ken's going to be blown away with. He doesn't know yet. And we have a few already lined up. We're going to have a panel show for our 100th episode, and it is coming up. We have Rita Rose coming. And the special guest, I'm actually not going to announce it till the day. It's going to be very, very cool. 4th of April, it's going to be 11 a.m., around 11 a.m. Queensland time. on the 4th of April, and it's going to be for Ken. It'll be your night before. For those in America, it'll be the 3rd of April. What time is it going to be for you, Ken? A 3rd of April for LA time.
I am just trying to look it up here.
He's going to look that up, and it's on the topic, the truth about freedom. So it's going to be a really hot one. So Rita Rose, our very special guest, who is going to rock you, and then a few others. So we're planning to have 8 guests on that show.
So it's going to be Thursday, April 3rd at around 6:15-ish Pacific Standard Time. We will go live.
Pacific Standard Time. Okay, 6:15 PST on the 3rd of April. And our next episode's episode 99. That's going to be on Thursday, March 27. And that's with Rhonda Shelley. And we're going to be chatting about the truth about domestic violence on our next show, which will be a very interesting topic. And that's around 11:30 a.m. Queensland time. Or for those in the US, it will be your 26th of March. What time is it going to be for you there, Ken? Our episode 99. So our 11:30 a.m. Well, actually, if we're on the same time zones, it'll be around probably 5:30 p.m. for you.
It'll be around March 26th.
Yeah, March 26th.
March 26th we'll go live at around 6:45-ish.
6:45-ish p.m. on PST time. Beautiful. So we look forward to seeing you on a future episode soon. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined in live. If you're watching the replay, let us know replay in the comments. Let us know live in the comments if you have joined us live, and sending you much love. We'll see you again next time on Total Truth Show. Bye for now. Bye.